Okay, so what is the oldest living thing on Earth? It feels like a simple question, right? But it's not. Not at all. It gets complicated really fast. It depends on how you look at living and how you define organism. Is it one single thing you can point to, or is it a whole colony of things that are all connected? Does living mean it's actively growing right now, or just that its cells are still there, even if dormant? We're going to talk about some amazing stuff. We'll look at trees, fungi, and even some really tiny things. And we'll see why there isn't one easy answer. It's a good way to think about life itself and how long it can last. First, let's just get the most common answers out of the way. People usually think of trees when you say oldest living thing, and they are right, in a way. Some trees are incredibly old, they stand there for thousands of years watching everything change around them. Take Methuselah, for example. It's a Great Basin bristlecone pine tree. It lives way up in the White Mountains of California. It's a tough looking tree, gnarled and twisted. You can tell it's seen a lot. For a long time, Methuselah was known as the oldest individual tree in the world. Its age was counted by taking a core sample, which is like drilling a very thin straw into the tree to get a cross section of its rings. Each ring is a year. It was found to be about 4,856 years old. That's a mind boggling number. That tree was already old when the pyramids were being built. It was alive before recorded history for many cultures. But then, people found an even older one. In the same general area, actually. This is where the story gets a bit sad. There was another bristlecone pine, which researchers call Prometheus or sometimes LPS 11. It was estimated to be even older than Methuselah. Some people say it was around 4,900 years old, maybe even more. But this tree was cut down in 1964 by a graduate student doing research. He didn't know it was the oldest at the time. He just needed to take core samples, and his coring tool broke. So he got permission to cut the tree down. When he counted the rings, he realized what he had done. It was a huge loss. A lot of people were very upset. So it's a reminder how fragile these ancient things are and how careful we need to be. So, if we're talking about a single standing tree, what's the current record holder? It's probably Gran Abuelo. That means great-grandfather in Spanish. It's an alerce tree, or Patagonian cypress, in Chile. It lives in a national park. People have been looking at this tree for a long time. It's massive. They estimate its age at over 5,000 years, possibly even 5,484 years. This estimation is a bit different from just counting rings. They use a special method that combines core samples with computer modeling. It's hard to get a full core sample from such a wide tree without damaging it too much. But the data they have, plus the models, points to it being older than Methuselah. It's a very slow growing tree, which helps it live so long. It is a true survivor. But see, this is where individuals starts to get tricky. Because a lot of the absolute oldest organisms aren't just one tree you can walk up to and hug. They are much, much bigger than that. And they are often clones. Let's talk about Pando. This is one of the most famous examples of a clonal organism. Pando is a colony of quaking aspen trees in Utah. It's called the trembling giant because of how the leaves shimmer in the wind. But Pando isn't thousands of individual trees standing next to each other. It's one giant organism. All those visible trees you see, which are called ramets, are genetically identical. They all come from a single enormous root system. They are all clones of each other. The root system is the main organism, and the trunks you see are like its sprouts. This root system is huge. It covers about 106 acres of land. It weighs an estimated 6,000 tons. That makes it one of the heaviest organisms on Earth, too. So, how old is Pando? This is where it gets really mind-boggling. Scientists estimate Pando's age by looking at how fast aspens grow, how quickly their roots spread, and how long individual stems usually live. The roots keep sending up new stems, while old ones die off. They think the root system itself could be as old as 14,000 years. Some estimates even push it to 80,000 or even 100,000 years. Imagine that. An organism that started growing during the last ice age, maybe even before that. It has been there, slowly expanding for a time period that makes human history look like a blink. So, is Pando the oldest living organism if you count a massive genetically identical root system that keeps regenerating new trees as one organism? Then yes, it's a very strong contender. It certainly outranks any single standing tree. But Pando is facing some problems now. Things like deer eating the young sprouts and human activity are threatening it. It's a bit like a very, very old person that needs a lot of care. There's another amazing clonal tree system called Old Tjikko. This one is a Norway spruce in Sweden. Like Pando, what you see above ground, the visible tree isn't actually that old. The current trunk is only a few hundred years old, but the root system underneath it, that's the ancient part. Scientists found that the root system of Old Tjikko is about 9,560 years old. How does that happen? Well, spruce trees can regenerate themselves. When a trunk dies, the root system can send up a new one. It's like the roots are immortal as long as conditions are okay. They keep renewing the part that's above ground. So, while Pando has many trunks at once, Old Tjikko is more like one trunk at a time, continuously renewed by the same ancient root system. It's pretty incredible to think about. That root system has been there in that spot since almost 8,000 BC. Okay, so we've talked about trees, but what about other forms of life? Are there even older things out there? Yes, there are, and they are a bit less glamorous sometimes, but just as amazing. Let's move to fungi. When you think of fungi, you probably think of mushrooms, but a mushroom is just the fruit of a much larger organism, kind of like an apple on an apple tree. Most of the fungus lives underground as a network of tiny threads called mycelia. And there is a fungus that is truly massive and truly ancient. It's called Armillaria ostoyae, but people often call it the Humongous Fungus. This particular one lives in the Malheur National Forest in Oregon. It's an enormous network of mycelia spreading underground. How big? It covers about 2,200 acres, that's about 1,665 football fields. Imagine that, a single organism covering so much ground. You can't see most of it, but it's all connected, all genetically identical. How old is the humongous fungus? Scientists estimate its age by looking at how fast it grows and spreads. They believe it could be anywhere from 2,400 years old to 8,650 years old. Some researchers even push those estimates to 20,000 or 30,000 years. If that higher estimate is true, it would easily be the oldest known single organism on Earth, surpassing Pando. It's just harder to verify the age of a giant underground fungus than a tree with rings. It's a parasite, actually, slowly killing trees as it grows. But it also helps decompose dead wood, which is important for the forest. It's a good example of how something can be both destructive and essential at the same time. So, with the humongous fungus, you have an organism that is not only incredibly old, but also one of the largest on Earth by area. It pushes that definition of individual organism again. Is it one living thing if it's spread out over miles and mostly hidden? Yes, because it's all one genetically identical network. Now, let's go even deeper, literally. Let's look at the ocean. The deep ocean is cold, dark, and very stable. Things move slowly there. And slow growth often means long life. Consider corals, not the colorful shallow water corals you see in documentaries, but deep sea corals. These live in very cold, dark water, sometimes thousands of feet down. They grow incredibly slowly, maybe just a millimeter or two a year. Because of this slow growth, some of these coral colonies can get very, very old. For example, some black coral colonies are estimated to be over 4,000 years old. Again, these are colonies, like a big apartment building, where all the apartments are connected and share the same DNA. Each polyp is tiny, but the whole structure is ancient. Some species, like Leopathes glaberrima, have been found to be over 4,200 years old. They just keep building on top of themselves, slowly, patiently. And then there are sponges. Specifically glass sponges found in the deep sea. Sponges are among the simplest multi-celled animals. They filter feed, and some species live in extremely cold, stable environments. These conditions are perfect for very slow metabolism and very long lifespans. Scientists have found some individual deep-sea glass sponges that are estimated to be over 11,000 years old, maybe even as much as 15,000 years old. One type, Monorhaphis chuni, is a single large glass sponge. It can grow very big, up to 10 feet tall. And because it lives so deep and grows so slowly, it just keeps adding layers and getting older. Imagine a single animal, not a colony, that has been alive since before the last ice age ended. That's truly ancient. So, if we're talking about an individual animal, not a plant or fungus, that's where the deep-sea sponges might take the crown. It's a quiet, cold, dark existence, but clearly a very successful one for longevity. But we can go even further down the rabbit hole of oldest living organism. What about things that aren't visible to the naked eye at all? What about bacteria and archaea? This is where the definitions really get pushed to their absolute limit. A bacterium is a single-celled organism. It reproduces by dividing into two. So when a bacterium divides, is the new bacterium the same individual as the old one? Or are they both new? This means that an individual bacterium, in the sense of a single cell, is rarely very old. And it just keeps dividing. But what about the lineage, the continuous line of genetic material constantly being passed down through division? That lineage is ancient. Bacteria and archaea have been on Earth for billions of years. The very concept of bacterial life is as old as complex life on this planet gets. So, in that sense, if you count the continuous line of cells, then bacteria are by far the oldest living organisms. Their ancestry goes back more than 3.5 billion years. Now, some scientists have found bacteria that have been in suspended animation for incredibly long periods. For example, there are bacteria found in salt crystals that are estimated to be 250 million years old. These bacteria were isolated and, in some cases, revived in a lab. So, were they living for 250 million years? Or were they just dormant? This is a huge debate. If a bacterium is in a spore state, completely shut down, not metabolizing, is it still living in the active sense? Or is it just waiting, and when it revives, is it a restart or continuation? It's a philosophical question as much as a scientific one. But if you consider dormant as a form of living, then these microbes in ancient salt crystals or ice cores could be the oldest individual cells to have ever existed in a state that could be brought back to active life. And think about the organisms that live deep underground, far from the sun, feeding on chemicals. These are called chemoautotrophs. Their environments are incredibly stable, and they reproduce very, very slowly. Their lineages have been going on for millions, if not billions of years without much change. The individuals keep dividing, but the continuous line is ancient beyond our comprehension. There's no way to put a single age on them like we can with a tree. Their existence is a continuous, unbroken chain stretching back to the earliest days of life on Earth. So, let's try to wrap our heads around all this. What's the final answer to what is the oldest living organism on Earth? It depends entirely on how you define your terms, if one. If you mean a single, distinct, non-clonal organism that you can easily point to, then Gran Abuelo, the Alert tree in Chile, at around 5,484 years old, is a very strong candidate. It's a single trunk from a single seed, growing for thousands of years. Other bristlecone pines are also up there. Or the Humongous Fungus in Oregon, with estimates up to 8,650 or even 30,000 years. These are colossal hidden organisms that have persisted for almost unimaginable lengths of time by continuously regenerating themselves. Old Tjikko, the spruce with its 9,560-year-old root system, is also in this category. But again, the living part of that is debatable. 5. And if you mean the oldest continuous lineage of life on Earth, where the genetic material keeps being passed down through countless generations of division, making the organism the entire unbroken line, then bacteria and archaea win, hands down. Their lineages stretch back over 3.5 billion years. The very first life forms were like them. They are the ultimate survivors, constantly adapting and existing for geological ages. It's a lot to think about, right? These organisms show us that life can take many forms, and old isn't always what we expect. They are silent witnesses to immense stretches of Earth's history. They lived through ice ages, massive climate changes, and the rise and fall of countless species. And they continue to live now, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes under threat. These stories aren't just about big numbers. They're about resilience, they're about how life finds a way to endure, to persist, to simply be for thousands and even millions of years. They make you look at a forest or even just a speck of dirt a little differently. They remind us that our time on Earth is a tiny fraction of the time that many other living things have already experienced. And that's a humbling thought. It makes you realize how connected everything is and how much history is literally alive all around us and deep beneath us.